in the etymology of the term, it stands for original gangsters, which is suitably Caucasian.
All right. Well, and with that, the original gangsters are live and on air here. We are live before lock with one Fast Eddie Fair. It's your old pal Emac. We're coming to you here on Saturday night. 5-game slate. There was a game at noon today. Sacramento versus
Knicks.
Sacramento. Sorry, I was just checking to see if we're live. Sacramento versus the Knicks, and yeah, didn't really watch that one. We've got another nooner tomorrow. We also have 2 3:30 games, and then 6 starting at 6. And I understand you and one Mr. Josh Engelman will be joining forces for a show.
Yeah, I was. I got up Thursday morning to look at the schedule going forward, and there were only 2 games Thursday night. And then I realized that we end up with some 5-game slates because of the weekend. There are between 6 and 9 games every day for the next 17 days thereafter. So I was like, all right, I really have to take today off, but I only get to do maybe 2 shows a week with Josh. So I'm like, all right, I'll take today off, but you have to do a weekend show with me. And his wife is out of town. And so he's consented to grace me with his presence tomorrow. So looking forward to that.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm just going to we'll wait just for a sec while we get a couple more people to come in. I'll announce this out there. I usually have all this stuff done early, but we have the scroll now on our screen, Eddie. Josh was teaching me how to do that earlier. So it took me a little longer than expected, but
I will amuse myself as we populate by looking at what is always exciting, a Knicks box score. Let's see what we had today for the New York Knicks. I mean, by Knicks standards, this is, the starters all played at least 23 minutes. Knox down to 23 minutes. He's been bad. They've finally started to pull back. Again, at the opposite time as you should do that. Again, you're way out of contention. You want to be developing players and losing games now. So your players who are playing badly, you want to play more now when they're your high draft picks. It's complicated. The Knicks need to sit down and talk about it. But 25 minutes out of Lance Thomas. Let's see. Noah Vonleh was injured, so that cut it down there a little bit. Jenkins back in the rotation for 13 minutes. Previously getting 30 minutes guy a week ago. Henry Ellenson, 4 minutes again. Luke Cornett played 13, as you will. Yep. It's I mean, for a Knicks box score, this is downright orderly.
Yeah, it was a little crazy. I don't know. I played the showdown, so I did not do very well. I limited Belitza, of all people, so I didn't know what was going to happen with him, and he did pretty well. And I tamped down De'Aaron Fox as my captain. That also was not the best thing to do. So live and learn. Yeah. All right, well, let's get her going here. We've got a 5-gamer. We will go game by game, and then we'll get to questions. A couple of these games are going to be quick. A couple of them are going to be really, really fun. We have just had ownership and projection updates, so you guys can go see that if you are behind the paywall. If you're not behind the paywall, you can join at any time. Use the promo code LIVEBEFORELOCK, all one word, and get 50% off any 1-month subscription. So, Eddie, we've got Brooklyn and Atlanta here. We have just a cornucopia of goodness with this one. Let me get my notes up here. We know that Atlanta is playing tomorrow. They're hosting the Pellies. 5 teams are playing tomorrow. So let's hit those real quick. It's Phoenix today.
4 on the slate, I think. One of them was early, right? Knicks?
Yep. So we've got Phoenix at Portland tonight. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow they'll be at Golden State. We've got Milwaukee hosting Charlotte tonight. Tomorrow they'll be at San Antonio. We've got the Knicks who hosted Sacramento today. Tomorrow they'll be at Minnesota. Minnesota hosting Washington tonight. They'll host the Knicks tomorrow. Atlanta hosting Brooklyn. They will host the Pellies. And then the 2 teams that are on an active back-to-back are Washington. Who lost a heartbreaker to Charlotte in Queen City last night. They are in Minnesota, and then Charlotte is in Milwaukee. With injuries in this game, we've got Amari Spellman's out with an ankle, probably out for the rest of the year. They're going to look at him again in April, but the season ends the first week in April. Dwayne Dedmon ruled out officially. He's dealing with a bruised knee. Tyler Zeller's on a 10-day contract. On the other side, Shabazz Napier is out for personal reasons, and Treveon Graham is out, still dealing with a sore back. Alex Len, shock.
Yeah, you're still missing. You mentioned Dedmon, but you didn't mention Alex Poitras, who took down his ankle in the last game, and Miles Plumlee still unavailable. So
there we go. Thank you.
Poitras being the most relevant of those. Like, he would have played 20-odd minutes tonight if he'd have been available, but he's going to be out a couple of weeks with a pretty bad ankle turn.
All right. How are you approaching the Alex Len chalk part 3?
Well, how chalky is chalk right now?
Well, let's see. If we look on the scroll, it's there, but I don't want to wait around to look at the scroll. We've got him at 30% on DraftKings, and he is the 4th highest on Fanduel. He is number 1 at 42%, because a deliciously priced center on Fanduel does not happen very often, as Adam pointed out today.
Yeah, that's true. On Fanduel, you know, there are no, you're spending an extra versus DK. I think it's $1,200 on Towns and $2,000 on Nurkic, and as opposed to even dollar per dollar, you have Len cheaper there. So I suspect I would be over both those numbers pretty significantly. I'm fine with moving other places. There's other cheap centers I like. I like Ed Davis. You know, on DK, certainly you can talk about Jared Allen, but I'd be probably into my 3rd lineup before I didn't start with Len on Fanduel and Len and Towns on DraftKings. I like Towns much more than I like Nurkic. To step back from the slate a little bit, I'm a really big fan of having no more than like 2 players from the last 3 games. Like, I'm such a fan of the first 2 games, and I think they're more likely to stay close and competitive, and the over-unders are through the roof, and the prices on the guys are better, and you know, Boston gets a matchup with the Lakers, and certainly I can see going to some of the cheaper Boston parts. You want to go with your Jaylen Browns and your Gordon Haywards and your Marcus Morrises. Even Tatum at his price seems pretty juicy in this matchup. No issue getting some guys from Boston against the Lakers, but I do think there is a real chance they bludgeon the shit out of them. And this being said, you know, especially if Kuzma is out. You know, a couple of weeks ago, the last time the Lakers looked good, honestly, is when they snuck out that game by a point in Boston. But, you know, I can certainly see that game being fugly in any number of ways. Just Boston I mean, maybe that game stays close, but we're limiting LeBron. There will be no Brandon Ingram. There may be no Kyle Kuzma. The absence of those things, it would not surprise me. And it's not a team that I think is in the best spirits. And even if they're playing well, they're playing against Boston, which is not really a great matchup for anybody. And the minutes could very easily be fractured due to blowout or just more of the G League All-Stars of Wagner and Caruso and Hart and all these guys coming in and getting their time. So really don't want to play any Lakers. And Boston, you know, I can certainly see going to some pieces there. Charlotte and Milwaukee, just not as appealing as those other 2 games. And the pieces I like just cost a shit ton more. And plus, we deal with the issue that there's 2 guys who should do a lot of the lifting in these 2 games with Kemba and Yanis, you know, doing a lot of the work. And I like them being the guys you take one of from this game. And then you have Phoenix against a Portland team that I'm pretty high on. I'm not insane Charles Barkley. They're going to make the finals high on them, but I like this Portland team, and I think they probably win this game pretty easily. Certainly on DraftKings, Lillard and McCollum were their cheek. I like Mo Harkless a lot now that Evan Turner is out. But if I was to write down the 20 players I like most from this slate, there's 13 or 14 from the first 2 games, maybe 15. So, and, you know, Charlotte and Milwaukee, not the best environment. Neither is Boston or LA, which has a pretty low total on top of it too. And so I guess just to step back, I'd really, in exposures in MME or building single lineups, have a ton of Nets and Hawks and Wizards and Timberwolves.
Here's a question for you. Let's pivot off of the Alex Len. So we know he's going to be wildly popular. He's in a good spot. Great matchup. If we're looking at pivots, the names that have come up more for tournaments, but we had a spirited discussion in the premium Slack chat today about Thomas Bryant as a potential, and then I was bringing up Enes Kanter. Now, things have to go right for those guys.
Yep.
In that, you know, Kanter could do some serious work in 20 minutes. We've seen him do it multiple times. This is the matchup to do it if he gets it against Ayton. but he is more or less the direct backup at this point to Jusuf Nurkic. So you're really hoping that Portland gets out to a nice lead, and they're like, yeah, you know what, Nurkic, let's work Cantor in with the other guys. Okay, that's possible. And sure, that's fine. It's a little tougher with Bryant because you need one of the many forwards to get in foul trouble or be out. Jeff Green in particular, so he gets some time there at center. We have seen Bryant go for 50 fantasy points twice in his last 12 games, but he's not in the starting lineup anymore, and he's only playing 16 to 20 minutes. Yeah. That's a little tougher there. If you were going to look for the leverage playoff of we need Len to do poorly, but one of these guys also does well, and if you get a 10% down from Len and a 10% up from these guys, all of a sudden you're 20% ahead of the bulk of the field. That's a feel-good spot.
Sure. Between those two guys, I would much rather play Enes Kanter. Besides the fact that I'm a little more comfortable in the production, besides the fact that the matchup is significantly better to me, besides the fact that he's cheaper by $400, you're also getting I mean, I like him more in like 5 ways. There's also the fact that you're getting the direct leverage on the field in probably third highest owned center of Jusuf Nurkic, where you're directly pivoting against that. And there's the fact that we've seen repeatedly the Wizards not even running out 48 minutes of centers anymore. Now, maybe they do against what's a pretty stout Minnesota front court, but I would prefer Kanter to Bryant pretty significantly. Bryant, I mean, it's a 5-game slate, so certainly Thomas Bryant at 4,400 or whatever he is, certainly not out of play for me. But I would like Kanter well more for 5. Like every tiebreaker goes to Kanter there for me. So yeah, I think Jared Allen can certainly get there. I would probably prefer to Ed Davis. That they frequently get towards splitting minutes. Ed Davis is actually pretty significantly outscored him in both the earlier games this year against Atlanta. Come to think of it, I think Ed Davis had 31, 32 in both of those games, and Jared Allen had 20-ish. That doesn't mean a lot to me. Those were, you had Dedmon out there. You had, I mean, it's just entirely different teams, but it's enough for me that at $3,200, I'll probably run Ed Davis out there, who I project for not that much less than $4,800 Jared Allen. But Jared Allen, who can pick up a half dozen blocks, is obviously still in play as well. I'd probably rather go there over Bryant. Just the way Bryant, I have projected for 16, 15 minutes. I'd be really surprised if he gets 20. It can happen, but like all these other guys, I'm pretty sure get 20. Even just the base rotations between Nurkic and Kanter, you'll just sometimes get 20 out of Kanter anyway. So,
right.
So those are some of the pivots. JaVale McGee, not out of play for me in the aforementioned game against Boston a couple weeks ago, where again was last time the Lakers looked really good. He played 30 minutes, I think, 29 and change. So, certainly some chance that you'll get to see him do that again in that matchup. So, JaVale would be, on that list for me, I suppose. But yeah, I'm fine with pivoting away from those guys. They did sign. Let me get my Zellers right. Tyler Zeller.
Tyler Zeller to a 10-day. Yep.
Tyler Zeller. I have a Tyler Zeller jeweler. Tyler Zeller. Well, I'm having trouble saying it. Tyler Zeller won me like $75,000 once. My single best DFS day ever came on Tyler Zeller's back when I started. I was just playing my cash lineup in all the GPPs on FanDuel and won 4 of them and came in second in the other 2 with 2% Tyler Zeller in there at center. Tyler Zeller in there at center. I'm really having trouble enunciating here. Anyhow,
this is beautiful. This is beautiful.
I'm glad you're enjoying yourself.
All right. So I wanted to just take the time to talk about that because Len is going to be the linchpin of most of the lineup construction. So now as we continue through the analysis, you've got a couple ideas of where you can go, dear viewer, and that will be nice. So you've got John Collins, who's very nice at 7,200 on DK, 7,900 on FanDuel. I'm hoping he gets 32 minutes.
They've said he's limited to 30. That has come out.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know if there would be
much of a limit. Just enough for me where I don't think I want it. It's a nice spot. Yeah. I don't have an issue with it. But 30, very good. The 2 games he's played against Brooklyn this year, I want to say 42 and 51 fantasy points, but both in like 35, 36, 37 minutes. So now, and those are both, slightly above average performances for him. I like him in 30 minutes. I'm projected for about 36 fantasy points. That's not quite enough. Could he get 40, 45, 50 in 30 minutes? Could, but that's just low. Like if he had been unrestricted, I was a real big fan of his. But working on hypothetical lineups, I yanked him out of both when they announced 30 minutes. That's just enough. I think you can do a little better with other spend-up options. But DK, especially 7,200, not out of play for me.
Okay. Trey Young is somewhat interesting at 82 and 8,300. He's going to get a lot of competition from Lillard and McCollum on DK, both for massive savings off Lillard, or McCollum, and Lillard is lower priced. So he's kind of in that sweet spot where he could be missed. He's similarly priced to D'Angelo Russell on some sites. Taurean Prince coming in as a discount dandy, was out a couple games for paternity, and then he got tossed in his first game back. But he is reasonably priced. Spencer Dinwiddie's a guy I really, really like. He produces approximately similar points production to Russell, and we're getting Russell at a price that says, gosh, you've been playing without Dinwiddie for 6 weeks, so we're keeping you around 8,200. Could Russell get 50? You betcha. This is the perfect place to do it. But Dinwiddie at a $2,000 discount is pretty nice. What do you like from as we branch out to the remainder of this game?
Yeah, so I like the Hawks in totality a little bit more than I like the Nets, though obviously the Nets certainly in my top 4 favorite teams to look at here when we're talking about this. So let me go back a couple pages in my notes here. I like Taurean Prince a lot. Either $5,000 on Fanduel, where small forward is always a little stickier. 4,500 on DK. I expect him to play 30 minutes here in what's a pretty great matchup. And that price is just a little bit too cheap. And he's one of the guys you can get with some pretty decent ownership. But he will get some time, probably down at the 4. So I like Taurean Prince, certainly a fair bit. Again, I like Alex Len. The ball and offense is not in Jared Allen's hands so much that I worry about his foul trouble so much, and the offense tends to operate a little more outside and less up and down when you have Dinwiddie up there. So I'm a little less worried about his foul trouble, and his foul trouble is really the only way he's going to screw this up. So I'm pretty confident in Alex Len in this spot. I'm inclined to eat that chalk again. I guess just wanted to reiterate. Trey Young on FanDuel, obviously too cheap. Not a lot of great priced point guards. Again, you alluded to the Trailblazers guys who are both much more significantly priced on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. So Trey Young feels like he should end up being pretty chalky on FanDuel. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. Certainly not out of play on DraftKings at 8,300. Don't mind Horder, don't mind Bembry, but generally I would have them after Prince, after Len, after Young, both sites. And for that reason, I imagine would end up with fairly little of them because simply I like those guys. And if I'm looking to add more, wing players in that 4K range and run it back, I would be more inclined to look across the ball and get, sort of stack the game a little bit as opposed to adding a 4th Hawk into my lineup. So, Joe Harris is going to end up being fairly chalky. I don't mind him here, but at that point, I would probably run the pivot to Alan Crabb, who you can drop on FanDuel and is 3,400 on DK, so you can jettison him there. I agree with Dinwiddie on DK at 5,600 is just too cheap. It's a really nice spot, $5,600. The FanDuel price is appropriate, which doesn't place him out of play, by the way. But that DK price is a little too cheap. I think the most likely outcome is him getting 30 minutes and 30 minutes against the Hawks for him. He's a point per minute guy, so that would give him against the Hawks. We'll be conservative with the projection of like 34, 35. That feels pretty good for 5,600. And obviously there's upside beyond that. I would have some shares of Karis LeVert, especially at that DK price at 5,300. The minutes are all over. You might get 20, you might get 28. But obviously I don't want him with Russ or Dinwiddie really, but it's just a spot where you can get the ceiling out of him. Kurix is going to start again. Apparently he's going to be the starter for some time. The price on him has obviously come up, but still this is just, I'm a fan of spiking all these guys in tournaments randomly. So, and And of course, I guess it's not obvious, but yeah, D'Angelo Russell has a huge upside here. And again, you look at the last couple times they played, you had one massive game out of D-Russ where he had 55-ish, and you had one terribly shit game where he had about 30, and both of those are very popular, but and possible. But yeah, 9,100, 8,100 for downloading. I have no issue with D-Russ anywhere you want to play him. I just would set a rule where I want LeVert or Dinwiddie or Russ, and none of the two. And again, Ed Davis, I expect to be really, really low owned, and he's, I really think he had over 30 fantasy points against the Hawks both times they played earlier this year, which again doesn't mean a ton, but he's $3,200, and anywhere near that, I'm pretty excited for. So, would be one of my first pivots there. I think he's, still getting a fair amount of time. He'll get at least 20 minutes, maybe get 24 out of him, and it's a pretty sick spot for him. So, like Ed D in there as well. But yeah, so. Probably most ownership, if I was building a lot of lineups, would be Dinwiddie. And then after that, probably approximately even shares of Russell and LeVert. And then after that, about a 6-way split between Allen and Kurucs and Harris and Crabbe and Carroll and Ed Davis. The issues with Allen and Ed Davis, who are probably the two I like most at their prices, is the fact that they're centers and you want to play a lot of Alex Len and a lot of Karl-Anthony Towns. And a lot of Yusuf Nurkic, I suppose.
Yep.
So with all those centers in there, it's tough to get to those guys, but I'd want to find a way to get them.
All right. So we spent a lot of time in that game because that's an important one. So is the next one coming up. We've got Minnesota and Washington. We saw this game last Sunday. The teams combined for 256 points. Washington 135, Minnesota 121. Tonight they are projected for a 243 over-under, with Minnesota favored by 7. We know that Dang's out, Covington's out, Howard suffered a setback, so those guys aren't really going to matter that much. The one issue we have with Karl-Anthony Towns is he is a center. On FanDuel, you can only play one center. Do you want to spend a minute talking about that particular approach? Because FanDuel, I'm playing 2 centers tonight, and it's between him and all the guys you mentioned in the first game, and then Nurkic and Kanter in the late game. So I wish I had 4 center spots, but I'm using one on Karl-Anthony Towns very heavily tonight.
Did you mean DraftKings? You said FanDuel.
Sorry, DraftKings.
No problem.
DraftKings. Can you talk about one center on FanDuel and how you would approach that move? And just quickly looking at our ownership here, we have Towns is 28%, Kanter is 42% on FanDuel, and they're separated by what, 60, almost $7,000. Oh, 69.
You said Towns is 28 and Kanter 42. I think you mean Len is 42.
Len is 42. Good God! Now it's my turn. You can't say Tyler Zeller. I can't say the right center's name.
Heiner Zenner. It's like a running back for the Lions.
Oh.
Yeah.
What a pair.
So, number one for me would be Len by a significant amount. I don't mind Yanis that much in his spot, and I can use him to pay for some of that savings. But you, even at $4,700, you're not that screwed if you drop him. And that's why. And we had that earlier this week a couple times where I was like, look, on DK twice in a row, I said let's play Dwight Powell and Rudy Gobert, leave Alex Len to FanDuel. And yeah, Alex Len was dog shit in like 2 of those 3 games, I think. And you dropped him, and some of those lineups turned out great. So still at $4,700, he can completely implode. You might still be just fine because he can be your lowest price player. But I can't get. I have Alex Len projected right now for 29 minutes and 36 fantasy points. I have a lot of trouble getting away from him. So again, Len would be my preference pretty significantly. After that, if I'm building my second tournament lineup and I'm not allowed to play Alex Len, I'd sit here and look at it for quite some time. It would either be Enes Kanter or Karl-Anthony Towns. Towns obviously has a massive ceiling here. It was a little disappointing in that Uber game because he only had, I want to say, 55 or something in that 260-point scored game you just alluded to, which is a little less than you'd hope for. Again, all hands are back on deck for that team, or enough hands, and that you have Teague and Rose and Wiggins, so you're not getting the usage advantage. But the spot is about as good as you're going to get out of Towns, who has been superhuman since coming back from his car crash-induced concussion. So Yeah, not at all surprised to see Towns be the highest scoring player on the slate. I have him 3 points less than Yanis right now, but again, he's also well cheaper on both sites. I guess on FanDuel, he's only $500 cheaper, which is, like I legit point per dollar barely prefer Towns, but since it costs me Len, I'm a bigger fan of Len and other guys. In this case, Giannis when possible.
All right, moving to the rest of the Timberwolves,
Sure.
looking with the DraftKings lens, for me, I like Jeff Teague. I actually like Teague on both sides, 58 and 6,700. Definitely keeps him in consideration. We know he has 40 fantasy point upside. I like Sarge at 3,900 on DK. I thought I would like Taj Gibson a little more. Now that I'm playing some other stuff, I don't have as much Taj Gibson thought. Adam pointed out that he'll be hard pressed to get much more than 20 minutes unless something befalls anybody else there. The thing about the Wizards on DraftKings, they're all pretty well priced. There's not a lot of arbitrage between their value and what their salary and what their projected points are. So we've got a couple questions in premium chat saying, what rules would you set for these first two games? How would you approach it? So what I did is I made 3 different sets of teams tonight using Fantasy Cruncher, 20 in each. I set my first rule was play 3 from Brooklyn, 3 from Atlanta, and then I put a couple other rules in there to get what I wanted from the player pool. I don't have anybody more than 70%. That's how I got that one. With the Wizards, I actually locked in Beal and Towns and said play 3 from each, which got more Ed Davis on that team. And
are you saying that you're stacking
the games?
Sorry, you said I'm building 3 lineups.
Sorry. So three sets,
okay.
3 sets of 20.
Okay.
And focusing on those games, and then the last one is the late game with Phoenix and Portland. I'm doing the same thing. I'm telling it to play 3 from each on that one, and then I did 10 and 10. One of them I said I want Cantor on every lineup. The other one I said I want Lillard on every lineup. Was how I was working it. So ultimately, I've got those, and I was just doing that separately, Eddie, for what I wanted to do for their prices.
I mean, there's a lot of rules I would have there. I mean, you're going through all those games. I would have a don't give me Ed Davis and Jared Allen rule. I would have a don't give me Enes Kanter and Yusuf Nurkic rule. I would have a don't give me more than one probably of D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Karis LeVert rule. I would load up a few rules there. And again, I am the least qualified of our incredible staff at Osmo.com to discuss the nuances of MME entering, because I've literally never done it. I've made multiple lineups, but they were always by hand, and the oncoming of the MME age of things it came after my prime, if you will. So, but I presume I don't have issues with that. I will say, like, I don't want 3 guys from Phoenix. Okay. Just listen to what you're saying. I think that's a waste of money. Like, I guess there's some, like, even if I'm stacking that game, I want 1 or maybe 2 guys from Phoenix. Like, the odds on you getting 3 guys from Phoenix who are good against Portland, I think, are nil. 1%. Like, I just think you're throwing away a dude, especially when the guys in Phoenix aren't that cheap anymore.
Correct.
Let me. They've played, I think, twice this year. Let me look at these game logs. I will be shattered if in either of these games there were 3 guys you wanted on the Suns. Just as an object example. All right. Here's the first one. And Devin Booker was out here. So in theory, that would be better for you because you'd get more evenly priced players. The highest scoring player was Josh Jackson with 31. Of the other starters, the highest scoring player had 22. DeAndre Ayton came off the bench with Holmes starting that game, had 28.5. You wanted 0 or 1 players from this team, and they got blown up by 22. And the second time they played, Kelly Oubre got 46 off the bench. You'd like him. Booker started and had 32. That's a no. Miles Bridges started and had 20. That's a no. Josh Jackson started and had 20. That's a no. Dragon Bender started and had 27.
We don't want to ever play him.
That's the second guy, but again, he's not like he's brilliant with 27. And the next highest scoring player was a Kobo off the bench with 26. So they're kind of maybe 3. Like, so for me, if I'm stacking that game, and I'm fine saying I want to focus on that game, I think it stays close. I think the starters play all their time. Stack 2 and 2.
Yep.
1 of McCollum and Lillard, and 1 of, like, run all your iterations of McCollum, Cantor, McCollum, Nurkic, Lillard, Nurkic, Lillard, Cantor, run all of those various permutations. I like Mo Harkless a lot from that game. I think it's a good spot for him. 4,200 is just too cheap for him. Evan Turner remaining out helps him a lot. And if you're looking for your, game log watchery guy, Seth Curry was halfway decent against them earlier this year a couple of times, and Jake Layman absolutely bludgeoned the shit out of them both games. I think Layman had like 30. I guess I have it here in front of me.
He's had 3 really good ones, or 2. Pardon me, the 2 times they've played, he had like 27 and 34 or something like that.
40 and 37, my good man.
There you go, even better.
So I guess that's some beats, which is fine. I like him not because he was good against them 2 times earlier this year. That's very close to irrelevant for me, but because of the fact that I do think a blowout is reasonably possible, and he's quite possibly on the court for extra time because of that. And they're a team that can give up a lot of 3-pointers, which is where he's going to score a lot of his fantasy points. So I don't mind him for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's and if you peel back that next layer, you want to look and say, all right, what happens if Phoenix stays close? Okay, well, it's probably going to be behind Booker and then one of Ayton or Oubre. In that case, yeah, that's where I want Lillard. So I set a sub rule in there that said if I play Lillard on a team, play 2 of these other 3 guys with the hopes that if I'm running an open crunch, I segmented mine by 20 just because I knew I'd be on air and wanted to get through it. The other thing I did when I went 10 and 10 that I didn't describe further is with the Cantor 10. Yep. I built it as if I've got Layman on a ton and I've got Seth Curry on a ton because I built it as if they were going to get some blowout run. And that's where I wanted to go with that one. And then I didn't really care which Phoenix guys I got. And I set a cap of 70, and it looks like it's a nice mix. Nobody's more than 50% between Booker, Ayton, and Oubre. And then it's just picking up Josh Jackson and some of those other guys. So that's how I looked at it from those. If you're building a full portfolio, and this is what Adam does, this is what Josh does, this is what a lot of these guys do. They'll run their big crunch 150. That's where you get all the rules within the rules. Sure. And you want to build out some more intricate ones because you just want to push the crunch once, and then you're getting your 150. Because what happens if somebody's ruled out, I'm in trouble because I got 3 different things going on. It's a pain in the ass. Yep. So with how they do it, you would go more intricately. But if you're just starting out with Fantasy Crunch or another optimizer, just section it off. You're fine. It's not going to really hurt things, and just have a backup plan if anything goes sideways, particularly on any of the late swap sites, because you can always just say, I'm playing, here's my dummy lineup that has everybody that's viable, but they're in a late game. So if things go south, I can just say, you know what, I'm riding off game number 1 tonight. Tonight, I think we have an hour till the next game. I can collect myself, figure it out. Yes, I'm giving up on one of the best games on the slate, but it buys me more time than having a shitty lineup.
I've got a few tweets coming in and other questions and a couple private messages. So what I want to do is I said again, I feel very good about being overly focused on the 7 and 8 o'clock games, which is fun for 2 reasons. One, screenshot life. You're not getting there at the end of the day. You're going to get to be winning a couple $100,000 at some point tonight if you're running 7 out. I'm just kidding, but I'm half kidding. So and that's good times. But I wanted to look at the other games and arbitrarily sort of be like, guy I'd have a little of, guy I have some of, and guy I'd have a lot of the other guys. Because and I'll use DraftKings prices again because it's the closest thing we have a common source of reference. So looking at these other games, I'd have a little Layman, a little Hood, some Enes Kanter, some Yusuf Nurkic, some Aminu, a lot of Harkless. And in this context, a lot of Harkless means 15%. So you're looking at like 20 shares in 150. But again, I'm really heavily focusing on those earlier games. A lot of McCollum, a lot of Lillard. Again, that is based on their DraftKings prices, but they are just well too low in a crazy matchup. And just having one of them, even if that game runs 3 quarters, they can easily pay off those prices. A little Tyler Johnson, some Devin Booker, a little Kelly Oubre, a little DeAndre Ayton, some McCall Bridges, $3,900. I expect him to very possibly see his 30 minutes any number of ways. I'll get him all the way up to some. A little Josh Jackson, little Rashawn Holmes. Obviously, you can see something happening there. Looking at Charlotte and the Bucks. Some Kemba Walker. He was disappointing last night. I think that will arbitrarily keep his... we didn't really talk about this game much. I do think Walker and Antetokounmpo are obviously the most likely guys to put up any sort of significant ceiling here. Walker still at 89 and 83 has a very real upside. I probably slightly prefer him to D'Angelo Russell, which feels weird, but I imagine if I'm building one lineup or just overall exposure, I like having LeVert in tournaments at 53. I like having Dinwiddie at 56. Those preclude me from getting so much D'Angelo Russell, so I imagine that I would end up with a little more Kemba, who can very possibly get you 50 here, and that still feels just fine on a 5-game slate at like $8,300. So those numbers are still a little bit down. FanDuel, I would prefer playing Trey Young. You're saving $600-700. DK, that's very, very close for me. Still probably more Young because not such direct competition, and the Hawks I like more behind him would again be Taurean Prince and Alex Len, who aren't really competing that much with Trey Young. Little Batum, little Marvin, not nearly as good of a spot for him. And again, I'm a big zig when they zag kind of guy. Was amazing yesterday. Got to tweet my favorite Marvin Williams gif a few times. You know, zig when they zag type situation there. A little Cody Zeller, medium amount of Jeremy Lamb. It's a good spot for Jeremy Lamb. If I'm looking at one of the secondary options on this team to go off, it would be him. It makes the most sense based on his rotation, based on his attack style, based on his play type. And for the Bucks, I do like Yanis more on FanDuel. He's been really good against the Hornets a few times this year, with the caveat that he was playing more minutes most of the. I think they played like once in November, once in December, once in January, something like that. But he had 59, 59, and 69, I want to say, for fantasy points. I haven't projected to do worse than all three of those games here tonight, mostly because I expect the minutes to be more limited. But all three of those games were very close. This game is in Milwaukee, and these teams have progressed in different directions. So I'm not shocked if Milwaukee runs away with this game. And again, I prefer lots of players from the first two games, but I would have a significant amount of Giannis just because even if it's a blowout, he'd probably get you 50 and there's a real raw points chance that makes the most sense. When we have a lot of guys on the Hawks and on the Nets and on the Celtics who cost $3,900, $4,300, $4,700, $5,100 that we think can get 40, it's very possible that Giannis getting 53 is still in the best possible matchup, best possible lineup, rather. So just some consideration there for the game theory of it. But not a lot else on that team. Little Bledsoe, little Middleton. One of the rare spots I'd prefer Middleton to Bledsoe, even at their prices where you're spending $500-600 more on Chris Middleton. A little bit of Brogdon. Obviously, you don't want any of them with Antetokounmpo. Yeah, and then I guess that and the Lakers, and so LeBron's going to play 30-32 minutes. Really tough in a world where Giannis exists and Towns exists, and to go with Bron when they're expected to limit him pretty significantly. So a little or no LeBron, I'd really have to look at it. Kuzma, I'll love if he's in. Just a fan of guys who are questionable and then play because they're 4% owned when they should be 14. You can play Josh Hart with no Brandon Ingram. He's going to play 30-plus minutes. If Kuzma's out, maybe it's like 36 minutes. The matchup is dreadful, and he's not good at fantasy basketball, but it's a 5-game slate, 3,600 on DK. You can drop him on FanDuel. I mentioned JaVale got 30 minutes against the Celtics last time. That gives me some interest. Obviously, Kuzma being out would be a strong corollary there. Bullock is not out of play. Would obviously rather play him on FanDuel where you can drop him. Rondo is the real interesting guy. I don't expect him to be on the Lakers after this year, so I imagine they are less concerned with monitoring his minutes. But the thing to keep in mind for all these guys is it's still a really bad matchup. Like, the Celtics are still very strong defensively, so you need a lot of things to go that way. The prices obviously come up. Could you get 50 out of Rondo tonight? Of course. It's a TV night, isn't it?
It's the ABC featured game, and it's revenge, Eddie. Come on. We've got the daily double.
I can't believe I didn't think of all the narratives. Is it his birthday? Are friends and family in attendance?
Oh, well, only because it's his bobblehead night.
Is it?
Okay. And I think he had a kid. There we go. Yeah. We've got them all.
So that's on the way to the stadium with his friends and family. So, I would probably rather play the other supplemental pieces to Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward, has shown, even with Kyrie Irving there, a pretty decent game recently. But I expect him to be more highly owned than Marcus Morris and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. And I would rather play one of those guys. Again, Gordon Hayward's game log, and I'm not a fan of uncontextualized game log watching, but we'll go with the last 7, 17, 17, 10, 14, 21, 50, 23. So one of the last 7 over 23, I will take him doing what he did in 6 of the last 7, not one of the last 7, and I expect him to be highly owned because people are sheeple, as people like to say. But yeah, I would probably rather Marcus Morris for $100 more. Again, his minutes are a little bit imperiled because they've got permanent spots now for Baines and Tice in the rotation, who aren't playing much enough to be very useful on their own right, but enough to screw up Marcus Morris. So sometimes he gets 20 minutes instead of 28. But still, he can pay off 4,420 minutes against the Lakers. I left Tice and Baines rated just because of the fact that you could easily have a gigantic blowout here, and I think those guys can get there. We've had like 2 40-50 Daniel Tice games in blowouts. Certainly could happen here. And Kyrie, obviously, very much in play. I haven't mentioned him. I probably slightly prefer Lillard, but both of them are in, I hope this game stays close and I get my full minutes. Both of them have a massive upside. I'd slightly have Lillard projected higher, and he's a couple $100 less on DraftKings. So probably FanDuel, I would prefer Kyrie Irving. DK, I would prefer Damian Lillard. But yeah, there's I just like looking at the earlier games because maybe all 3 of those late games stay competitive and have some decent fantasy producers. There's just a whole lot of ways they can go sideways. And even if they don't, you can build some pretty sexy lineups out of the first 2 games. So, like, oh, God, that game stayed close, and Kyrie got 51, and Lillard got 49, and Kemba got 50, and I don't even know, Braun got 53 or whatever. You could still be fine if you got the right pieces of the first couple games. So, I don't know. I just feel like sort of sucking up some chalk there. I'm going to look at our ownership, which I haven't looked at yet. I'm kind of curious what it looks like.
All right. We've got 18 minutes left. Yes, we went a little roundabout with the games, but you know what? We hit them in the order of importance, and that's what's key. We did have a downgrade here with Wiggins. He has been downgraded to questionable with a quad injury. We don't like downgrades. Oftentimes it trends that downgrades during the day or just before the game end up being worse than we think, just like upgrades tend to be a little bit better than we think. So if I was on an early lock site, I would not be playing Wiggins. So FanDuel, I would not play him.
I agree. Little extra appeal for our boy Jeffers there. Little extra appeal for Derrick Rose, who's, was pretty close to out of play, but obviously a nice matchup environment. He can certainly spike it in 25 minutes. So I like Rose a little bit now, and it's a cookie for our boy Carl.
Indeed. And anything that keeps the Wizards perchance staying closer is always a good thing. There. And then Luol Deng's ruled out, but we were expecting that. So
Yep. No, they have. I mean, you mentioned Taj Gibson before. I didn't specifically respond. Yeah, he's basically. I mean, he does get out there next to him a little bit, but he's basically just playing the backup 5 at this point. He's basically got Gorgie Jang's old job with Tolliver backing up the 4. I think he's. I haven't looked at Taj in a little while, but I think he's getting 15 something odd minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky for him to get to 20, but he does play a little alongside Saric
at the same price.
Yeah,
like I like being contrarian, which I'm sure is somewhat of the theory here, but I think there's a chance you get 28 minutes out of Dario Saric in what's a really fast game, and Wiggins being out helps him a little bit. Like, I would much rather Super Dario.
Definitely agree with that. Shall we hit a few questions?
Sure. I am prepared. Hopefully they will. I like questions if for no other reason than they tend to cover shit we missed.
Yes.
So like if there was a hole, okay, let fill in my holes.
Here is a good one from Achilles in Premium Chat. Would you play Teague alongside Rose if Wiggins is indeed out?
Yes. I think Teague, Rose, Towns, you're probably asking for a little bit of trouble. If you play it, have Beal in there, and just, that'll be your game stackaroo there. But yes, that matchup is advantageous enough. Both Teague and, Rose at 58 or 53, again, that's a little bit site dependent, could certainly still have the games you need there. So I don't think it's ideal. I would probably rather, have some more Hawks in there, etc. But I don't think it's an out-of-play concept, and I don't think it's a particularly bad one. You could certainly see those three guys combining to do a lot of work. I would probably rather have Teague Town Saric or Rose Saric Towns. That seems a little less likely to be cannibalizing itself. But I don't think that lineup is out of play. Without any Wizards, you are asking for a pretty weirdly specific outcome, I will say.
All right. Next one we have here. Oops, let me get back to that. It's 2v2, Ed Davis and Prince, or Allen and Tice. That is a DK GPP.
I'll go with Ed Davis and Prince.
Yep. Any thoughts on Yanis overall tonight? I know you mentioned you liked him a little more on FanDuel, probably with the position requirements and people looking to go to Towns.
Yeah, I think I did my whole spiel on Yanis. I have him as my highest scoring player tonight at 57 fantasy points. The minutes are not as juicy as they were the previous three times these teams got together. The Charlotte team is in a vacuum worse. This Bucks team is in a vacuum better, both staffing and play style, and how well they've rounded and really embraced both the offense and the defense there. But they played close all three games. Off the top of my head, I think the three games they played earlier this year were 1, 3, and 9-point contests. That's right, give or take a little bit. I don't think any of them got to 10. So you can certainly hope this game stays close, but it's in Milwaukee. There's some risk there, but I'm fine with spending up on Yanis. I do think it is a matchup in which it is more likely it is centered towards him, as you often see in situations like this one. So I'm not a big fan of Bledsoe, who I like 8 days out of 10. Prefer Middleton a little bit more in play in tournaments, but not a big fan of middles. So I like Yanis. I have no issue with seeing Yanis in just about any position or format.
FanDuel Cash, would you go with Davis and Joe Harris or Saric and Layman?
Do former one in cash. Not terribly close in cash. The second one, I'm having trouble speaking. The second one in tournaments, I probably slightly prefer. Your ownership will be a little bit better. Upside's a little more spiky there. But the first one in cash, pretty significantly to me.
DK, to be a little different on single entry, would you look to Aminu, Harkless, or Layman as a cheapie on single entry DK?
I would still go with Harkless. Having Turner out there again makes me feel a little bit better about his minutes. The matchup is great. It's a Portland team that not at the Hawks level, but turns over the ball plenty and plays into his steal and block upside. So I'll go with Aminu.
All right. Would you be over or under the field on Yanis? On FanDuel, he is on DraftKings he is 20, and on FanDuel he is 29.
Those are decent numbers. I think I would be under on DraftKings. It'd be close. On DraftKings, I have him not incredibly different from Brad Beal. I like Beal a lot in this spot. I have him for just shy of 50, and he is $1,600 cheaper than Yanis. So points per dollar, he grades out a little bit better for me. And again, I'm a little more excited about stacking that game, and I'm already looking at playing Towns. So a lot of the lineups, my exposure from this game would be Towns, Beal, Teague. We didn't really talk a lot about the other Wizards. We talked about Thomas Bryant, and I kind of dismissed him a little bit. I don't mind Portis. 5,700 is, still leaves him a bit of an upside. He has hit 40 fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games, including against this Minnesota team. I am concerned by the denouement when it comes to the minutes. I certainly think it is tournaments, but I like Portis quite a bit. After Beal, he's probably my favorite guy to look at here. I don't mind Satoransky. Wasn't terribly good in this last game, but that was a weird game. Teague was limited in a couple of ways. But Sato you can certainly run. Ariza is still a little too cheap. I mean, earlier you alluded to you thought these players were priced appropriately on DraftKings. I disagree. Okay. I think every starter for the Wizards and Jabari Parker is priced a little bit too cheap. Not wicked too cheap, not McCollum Lillard too cheap, no, but they are all players who project pretty nicely for me at those prices. So whereas they don't, match up necessarily with the Hawks were, this is a game that is going to run all the hell day. So when you look at, Jeff Green at $4,500, who's going to play 30 minutes, when you look at Bobby Portis, who's going to play 25, 26 minutes probably, but take 16, 18, 20 shots, when you, look at Trevor Ariza, who's going to be out there for obviously an extended period of time, Satoransky, who not always very involved in the offense, but does have a giant upside. I'm a pretty big fan of the Wizards.
All right, we do have news that Kyle Kuzma is going to be out tonight. Not unexpected.
They're folding up the tent. I expected that. With Ingram's going to be out for the year and yada yada yada. Like they are folding up the tent, which is the smart thing to do. I really hope someone turned to LeBron and went, "Listen, you're not doing shit this year. The best thing for the franchise is to lose every possible game from this point forward." And he might have said, "Go fuck yourself." I don't do that, but. I have a feeling with his announcement that, the minutes are limited and he'll play more when he feels like it. He at least kind of gets that. So that's one of the reasons I'm not super happy about them or Boston. I think they run out more shit. I think Boston beats the shit out of them quite possibly. And I get 22 minutes of Rondo and 26 minutes of Alex Caruso and 20 minutes of McGee and 14 minutes of Jonathan Williams and 21 minutes of I could just see it being a goddamn nightmare. So Josh Hart will play 30-something minutes. Okay, that feels kind of good, but he's Josh Hart playing the Celtics. They're folding up the tent and moving to a new town there, as they should. That's by far the most intelligent thing they could do. They're gonna be lambasted and excoriated and shit on for how bad this year has been, as they should be. Best thing you can do is do better next fucking year. Get yourself Anthony Davis, get yourself another trade asset. So, yep.
All right. A few FanDuel Cash questions here. Kemba or Irving? Kemba on the back-to-back. Irving in the who knows what's going to happen game.
That is very close for me.
Irving,
you are saving, I believe, $600 with Kemba.
Okay.
I think is the number. So for that reason, I will go with Kemba in cash. In tournaments, I probably prefer Irving. If that game stays close, he can put up, obviously, a goddamn monster. Not that Kyrie can't, but not that Kemba can't. Kyrie's upside is obviously massive. Kemba's a little less likely he gets there. Did spike a 50 against this team earlier this year, but Kyrie can do 75. I'm pretty shocked if Kemba Walker drops 75 against the Bucks. Kyrie could do that against the Lakers if that game stays close. So tournaments, generally going to prefer Kyrie a little bit. Cash, I would probably prefer Kemba a little bit, who probably is going to get me my 40. Kyrie, who the hell knows what's going to go there. Again, Brad Stevens, being a very intelligent coach, in-game limits Kyrie frequently. So if they're up 30-11 after the end of the first quarter, you might play 3 minutes in the second.
Let's see. FanDuel Cash, this is for Achilles. Lillard, Russell, and Saric, or Teague, Giannis, and Marcus Morris?
Teague, Giannis, and Marcus Morris.
All right. For a single entry DK, Satoransky, Dinwiddie, or Teague?
I need to look at our ownership, and I don't have a good grasp of what those guys will be owned. So Dinwiddie at 16, Sato at 15, Teague at 24. I'd probably play Satoransky. Right. Very close. None of them strike me as this is the correct answer there, but I would probably play Satoransky depending on other exposure to those games. It's very, very close. I would probably go Sato and then Teague, suck down a little chalk. And it wouldn't surprise me if that Teague number comes up with Wiggins threatened, if you will, at the moment.
Is it important to have Kemba if you play Giannis in a tournament?
No. It's nice. It's not important. And that's, again, a lot of money to spend on the game where I said this isn't really one of the games I want to spend a lot of money in slots on. So I'm fine with it, but I'm almost ambivalent on it, where now I'm asking for 2 guys in a game I don't like that much to get there. So no, it's not important. It's fine.
Here's another intriguing one. FanDuel Cash. This is one of these players will be the drop. You've got Hart and Rashawn Holmes, or you've got Jamal Crawford in his 18th year and Marcus Morris. Friends and family, potentially. Portland not that far from Seattle.
for Crawford.
For Crawford. Just saying, if it's his last time.
I would. Is this cash or tournament? I'm sorry.
Cash.
Jesus.
I got to go Hart and
I'll
Holmes.
go Hart and Holmes, but it's sticky. I mean, Mark Smart's is obviously the best player there, but I cannot Jamal Crawford and cash. Obviously, you're dropping a guy. I will still slightly go Hart and Holmes. That's very interesting.
If Wiggins sits, would you go with Hart or Josh Okogie?
I would probably go with Okogie at that point. The minutes will push back up. FanDuel is where I presume we are. I want to make sure I'm getting
not. Yeah, they're not saying.
Yeah, FanDuel he's 37, so that I would probably slightly rather Okogie there. I mean Hart obviously it can have some sort of ceiling, and especially if he gets a lot of time against the B unit. And it is worth pointing out that his anemic play thus far this year, you're talking about the fact he's like a 0.5, 0.6 fantasy point per minute guy. That's true, but you were looking at massive amounts of time next to LeBron James and next to Brandon Ingram and next to Kyle Kuzma and so that number will come up. He is not that bad. He's one of a few players who have sort of a fraudulent point per minute score. But yes, if Wiggins is out, would probably slightly rather get my Okogie on.
All right. Can you rank the Wizards I'm guessing DK outside of Beal, please?
Sure. For tournaments, I would probably rank my preference of playing them counting position, and I'm doing a lot of that. The next, I'm going back and forth between Portis and Satoransky, but those are going to be the next two for me. Probably Portis, Satoransky. Yeah, Portis, Satoransky, Parker, Ariza, Green, but Portis and Satoransky pretty much identical as guys I like a lot in tournaments, and Ariza, Parker, and Green a tier down, but still guys I like, having one of if possible. So Portis and Satoransky, the guys I would like to look at next the most.
Russell or D'Angelo Russell or Trey in DK Cash?
In cash, I will go with Trey.
All right. Would you play Tatum or Portis in a FanDuel GPP?
It's a good question.
We have 3 minutes left.
I will go with Portis and stick with my guts. I think my current, let me look at it. The FanDuel lineup I was tinkering with before has Tatum and Portis in the power forward spot. So,
there you go.
I suppose that makes my ambivalence make a little more sense. I will stick to my guns and go with Portis, but very close for me between those two guys.
All right. Kemba or Lillard DK tournaments?
Kemba or Lillard DK tournaments? I'm going to stick with Lillard.
All right. Tournament, FanDuel. No, we already did that one. Here's one. Russell, McCollum, and Joe Harris, or Damian, Wiggins, and Aminu in Yahoo Cash, well aware that Aminu could be out, but they can late swap. So Russell, McCollum, Harris, Dame, Wiggins, Aminu.
Second one.
Okay.
We are coming up on it, my friend.
I've got to do one last crunch here. Thankfully, it's on tiers. No tiers for me, I hope.
Tiers.
DK tiers. It's kind of a fun concept.
They usually late swap that, right? That's usually, or late slate that. That's usually their.
When they can, they do. They usually try to bump it a half hour behind. But tonight, with just 5 games, they're only running one. If there's really good late slates, they'll run a second one. But I've had some success on that. It's basically a test of how good your projections are, and then how you want to. You can. A lot of people with hockey, it's great because a lot of people don't realize you can stack lines that are there. Not full lines are in there usually, but sometimes you can find them and you can do okay. That's going to take us up to the wire here because they are seeing us what we said 30 seconds ago. McCollum and Collins or Nurkic and Oubre? I'm going to type the answer.
The first one.
All right. That's going to be the last question here. Because we're at lock when they're seeing this, Eddie. So we have some fun ahead of us. We do have one game of Daddy Likes, or one team that is live. So I will come up here and get us a player pool. And I was thinking back to this. Was this a... I know we had done it early at FanDuel, but I think this might have been a Jay Walker invention.
The Daddy Like thing?
Not Daddy Like. Well, the ownership. You guessing ownership.
I really don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. I really like Jay, one of my favorite guys I've ever worked with. Really good-natured and obviously doing great things with his life. So shout out to that guy who's just a prince. But I don't recall. I used to guess at the ownership and randomly be sometimes really, really accurate, sometimes humorously inaccurate. But I don't recall exactly from whence it evolved. But it wouldn't shock me. I really don't remember. You should reach out to him and ask. I would be absolutely curious to know what his recollection is.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him, because I know... I almost want to think you and I would do it occasionally, but he came up with the whole game thing and all that, and I didn't want to. I'm almost positive it was.
I remember when I came up with, when we had 3-man shows, I was competing against guy number X.
Yes.
So it's me, Jay, and someone else, or me, you, and someone else. I would be like, okay, we're gonna lock everybody, push back from their computers, and whoever downloads the thing, download the thing, and then ask the questions.
All right. Yeah. This is from Seth, not Seth that has been banned from the world, but our fan vice guy Seth. He wants to know, if you were able to play, would you rather win $100,000, or would you rather consistently kick my ass in the Fred Van Elite fan club contest? I believe his phrase was "taste Emacs tears."
Oh, I can do that just hosting shows with you. I don't need to. I'll take the $100,000.
I would recommend that.
$100,000 to charity, even if I don't get $1. But I'd rather do that than taunt you. You've had enough misery in your life.
All right, here we go. We have the one game. It is Atlanta, and it is Brooklyn. I have called up the $15 DraftKings contest.
Gonna be a good one.
Who is number one?
Alex Len.
And what is your guess at his percentage?
Yeah, so let's see. We had that news. That'll bump Towns a little bit. 1 second. I'm having my carnitine here. I gotta fuel my muscles. Power up. Okay. Alex Len. I'll go with 38.
He is at 35.5. Very nice. The last Osmo projection was 33. Who is number two?
You know what I would love to do with this, by the way? But here's the thing. I can't win, but I would love to do me versus the projection. That would be amazing. I would really enjoy that. But the thing is, I can't win, because if I win, all I'm doing is making our projections look bad. So it's a no-win situation. So let's not do that. But just off the top of my head, that'd be fun.
Right.
What,
2, 3, 4.
I'm gonna give myself the out that if I spent 10 minutes at this, I think I could come up with better answers. But I'm just gonna sort of spit out some names here, because I don't want to do 10 minutes of really shitty show hosting of just sitting here and thinking. But there's a whole block of guys after this who are going to be in the teens to 20s, I think. I'll say D'Angelo Russell second.
It's essentially a statistical tie between him and the other guy.
The other guy. I'll go with Dinwiddie for the other guy then.
Yep. So what do you think their percent is? Len was 35.5.
If they're that close, 25.5 each.
All right, 28 for Dinwiddie, 27.5 for Russell. We have Russell at 27. We were off on Dinwiddie, 21 versus 28. Then there's a few Atlanta guys here. You want to run down the rest of the list, then we can see who played themselves.
Let's see.
People played themselves.
I assume your next guy will be Trey Young.
No.
For Atlanta. John Collins.
John Collins, it is.
Really? Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted that much. Are they both like over? So Collins over Young. I thought Young was going to be like 23, 24%. So I'll say 24 for Collins and 23 for Young.
25 for Collins. We had him at 18, 15. I think Collins, I don't think people realize that minutes limit is going to cap a 50-point upside game. And then Trey Young's at 20.5. We had him at 21.
Yeah, I don't hate John Collins, but at 25% owned or whatever you just said, that's, I think your most likely outcome is in the mid-30s, and that's fine. But all right. So and then Trey Young, and then I assume you're going to hit Brooklyn 4K pieces, and Taurean Prince is going to be in here, and
yep,
Jared Allen and Ed Davis and Alan Crabb and all those guys are going to be in there.
Yep, you're just nailing it. Harris, LeVert, Prince.
Well, it's only one goddamn game. It's not that hard to nail it. Like, there's only a few players left you can play, but I don't know what order I would put them in. But you have LeVert, Prince, Harris, Davis, Allen, Kuruk, Damari Carroll, Kent Bazemore.
Yep.
Porter, and they're all going to have some ownership. I'm curious who you get at the bottom there, because there's going to be some people who are like in the single digits, and I'd like 7% Bazemore or 7% Harris.
All right, well we'll get the reactions here. We've got Karuk's at 6.
Yeah, I like that. It's 4,600. Like, you're not he's 49 and 46. That number has obviously come way up, but I'm projected for 27 minutes now. Got an outside shot at 30. Kind of say floor 24, and the matchup is obviously pretty pristine. So I'm a fan of Kuruk's at 6. Yeah, get her done.
Ed Davis at 5.7. Damari Carroll at 5.7.
Oh God,
Bazemore at 4.
I like the Ed Davis one a ton more. Like he's. I just need a couple fouls on Jared Allen, and like that can turn into busting. He's $3,200. I have to look this up now. I really think he had 30 something against. I didn't look it up, but I really seem to recall him having 30 something fantasy points against the Hawks both games earlier this year. So heading over to StatMuse.
All right, while you're doing that, Tyler Zeller 0.5, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson 0.1, Jalen Adams 0.1, Shabazz Napier 0.03, Dwayne Dedmon 0.03, Amari Spellman 0.01, Alex Poitras.
Tyler Zeller is not. You played yourself. Tyler Zeller is actually
no. He's still live, but Napier, Dedmon, Spellman.
The rest of them are playing themselves. Yes.
Jared Dudley. Oh God, somebody played Alan Williams.
Ooh, Big Sauce.
Big Sauce had some moments with Phoenix.
I love Big Sauce. Great nickname too. How do you get it? 2 games this year, 31 and 31.5. There you go. Last year, 23, 17, 35 before that. This has been pretty good against the Hawks. So there you go. 3,200. What are you gonna do?
All right. Well, with that, we're gonna get on out of here because I'm making chicken nachos for the wife. So it'll be a fun one. Be a good time.
And thorough.
And for those of you that are still out there, we've got Fast Eddie Fair and Josh Engelman on the final or live before lock. Sorry, live before lock. I was blanking there. Live before lock. It's a 6:00 tip off, so I'm assuming you guys will go around 5. That will be announced earlier before the show. But there we are.
I know nothing.
I'll let Josh announce.
I work for you guys. I just work here. I have no authority or knowledge beyond the fact that I have to talk about basketball for an hour and 90 minutes once in a while, and then they send me back to my hole, put on my GIMP outfit, lock me in the trunk.
All right. Before we leave, you have to say your famous phrase, Eddie. You played yourself. Congratulations.
But who am I talking to? Usually, like, oh, fine. Congratulations, the people who played Shabazz Napier, etc. You've played yourself. That's not really my famous phrase. I think someone else may have popularized it a bit more than me, but I'll take it for the moment.
Well, chat can't move on with the rest of their evening until they hear that. So we're going to move on with ours. You can follow Eddie at Fast Eddie Fair. I'm at EMACDFS. It is Osmo_COM on the Twitter sphere. We will have projections Up for tomorrow, we've got NASCAR articles. We've got all sorts of goodness out there. So check it out. Promo code Live Before Lock, all one word, gets you 50% off any 1 month package that does include the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. With that, gamers, good luck.